So RAFFMA for me is an extension of my classroom. It's a laboratory space for my students to come through and look at materials, to understand how to look at art, to get close to it, to understand how artworks talk to each other from across the room. So it's really important to be able to take my classes, students across many different types of majors, for them to go to the museum to see art in person, because seeing art in a classroom projected on a screen is not really seeing it. And this way at RAFFMA, they can get up close and personal and really kind of connect with the artwork in the ways that they want to. Taking students to the museum for the first time last year, the first year I was here, there was an exhibition of self-help graphics, an artist collective in East Los Angeles. They made these stunning prints surrounding the cultural practice of Dia de los Muertos. And for many of my students, first time they'd ever been in an art museum, and they walk in and they see this bright color, they see images from their own families, from their own culture, and they could really see, like, actually, I am part of a much larger lineage, a much broader piece of culture. And also the students who did identify in that way could connect with other classmates about, I relate to this. This reminds me of my own family, and it's here in a museum. So I think RAFFMA does this really amazing work of connecting students to RAFFMA as a place that they can learn, that they can experiment, they can ask questions, and also connects them to other art museums. So if they can do that here, where else can they go and ask those questions? Where else can they see themselves in culture? What other museums, what other places can they go and learn about their world? I remember very specifically one student coming into this vitrine, and there's this little tiny, ceramic object. She looks over it, and all of a sudden, literally her face changes, because she realizes there's all these little scales, and it looks like a fish. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, look at this!" And she actually called people over to look at it. And she and I talked for a couple of minutes about what was so interesting to you about this. She seemed so not excited when we walked in, and she's looking at these little scales, and she said something about I could just pick that up and hold that. And it was really old, and it was completely distant to her in terms of her culture, how she had thought about art. And all of a sudden this little tiny object sparked these ideas about how was it made, how hard was it to make, and also how precious it was for her that here's this thing that she and this artist from a different time and place connected on, because I think she also really liked fish and this design and everything. So there are countless moments like that in every class that I teach, where students come in maybe confused, maybe feeling is this really for me? And then they walk in and they get to see the shine of paint, where they see these little details, they see a sculpture they can walk around, and all of a sudden they're talking to me, they're talking to each other, they talk to the gallery attendants, they talk to the staff when we invite them. All of a sudden, the museum isn't this confusing, unfriendly place that's not for them. It's an extension of their classroom. I feel why the community and campus should support this museum is a total no-brainer. This museum does so much work for our students on a daily basis, and they do it year-round, and they do it for the whole community. So one of my favorite days of being a Coyote has been the RAFFMA Community Day, which was a big event on a Saturday that invited students, faculty, all of the community, and I saw students here with their kids making art projects, having snacks. They were talking to me about, connecting what they saw in my class to what was on view, and then their child was also making something related to what was on view. And all of it was thinking about how can we, use art to think about our culture? How can we use art as an entry point into education, into knowledge, into connecting with each other? And so to me, RAFFMA does all of this work, and they do it for free. And it's such an incredible resource to be able to send students and our neighbors into one of very few arts museums in this region of San Bernardino, knowing that they're going to have a world-class experience. Right? It's an incredible collection. There are scholars on campus who think about and analyze artworks in the collection. And on top of that, they invite nationally known and internationally recognized scholars to come here and talk with us about their research, about what we're seeing in the museum. And RAFFMA also brings in people to help, the youngest among us about how do we make things to connect with each other, to connect with history, and maybe to even envision the world that they want to be in. And so to me, it's such an easy question, like, yes, of course, everyone should support RAFFMA.